Hey, it's Grottu Orloff, and I thought I'd come on and talk about something that very few people on YouTube are talking about right now, and that's a new movie called Superman. I notice when I go to YouTube that there's not a single thumbnail about Superman. There's nobody telling me whether it's garbage, worse than Plan 9 from Outer Space, or the most wonderful thing ever. It's like nobody's talking about it on my feed. It's really weird. So I thought, if no one else is going to do a review of Superman, I guess I'll do it. And I'll give you the definitive word on Superman so you'll know what's going on with it. And yes, I'll talk about spoilers, but I'll give you a warning first and give you a chance to hobble over to the Roku box and turn it off. I won't just say spoilers and then immediately start vomiting it out. I will say spoilers and wait about 60 seconds, and I will give you the time so that you can go back later after you see the movie and watch the rest, because I'd say I have a different point of view than other people, but since no one is talking about Superman on YouTube, I guess I'll be the lone voice out there crying in the wilderness about a movie called Superman. So, Superman's been around since 1938, so the country's been around since, well, I guess 1776. I mean, that's when we declared ourselves independent, but we had to fight a war before we were technically independent. So anyway, we've been around a while, 250 years pretty much. And here's a character that's, 95 years old? My father said he had a Superman comic. My father was born in the 20s. He said, I mostly read Captain Midnight, but I had a Superman comic, and it showed him his spaceship blasting off from Krypton. I'm thinking, man, did you have Superman #1 or Action Comics #1? But the origin was told more than once in the comic. But, he didn't have it anymore, so it's a moot point. Okay, so there was Superman in comics. There was a wonderful series of Max Fleischer, beautiful color cartoons, theatrical cartoons, only a few years after the early days of World War II, that were playing in movie theaters, that were fantastic, still state of the art to me. Batman, the animated series in the 90s, was based on the style of those great Fleischer cartoons. Wonderful. I'm sure you've all seen those. Before the 1980s, when VHS came along, and I couldn't believe when I found a VHS rental tape of the Superman cartoons. Oh, that was an amazing day about 1986. Before that, I'd seen one of the Fleischer cartoons in a film room at a convention. It used to be, or actually it wasn't I think it was at the local college that I would later go to, and I was like in 6th grade, and they had a projector and they were showing 16 millimeter stuff, like the Star Trek blooper reel, and Bambi meets Godzilla and all that stuff that you can see just so easily now on YouTube. Hardware Wars, the geek stuff that they would show at conventions back then, and they showed a Fleischer cartoon, and man, I couldn't believe that. It's like, why hasn't this been shown on television all my life? So the Fleischer cartoons were great. There was a Superman radio series that ran for many years. Superman saying "up, up, and away" comes from that radio series, because how else, it's like he didn't say it in that comic book. But on the radio show, you have to know when he's taking off. So he'd say, "up, up, and away," and then there'd be the whooshing sound, and okay, he's taking off. You can visualize that in your mind. A great series. There were several movie serials. Kirk Allen playing Superman, those were good. There was a TV series that was really great in the 50s. Superman was kind of like a dad figure in that, and Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen. Well, in the first season, Lois Lane was portrayed as kind of a strong girl. That was was that Phyllis Coates that played her in the first season, but Noelle Neal as this took over, and she was fine. But Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane were portrayed kind of like 8-year-olds, like dolts, like Superman was their dad and they were Wally and the Beeve. I mean, they were really stupid, like, gee willikers, golly, and it was, yeah, it was for kids. I watched it in second grade in reruns in the early 70s, but it's great to see Superman on the TV. And then Superman cartoon from Filmation, mid-60s. I thought that was great. I loved the music. Same guy played Superman that had played him back in the old days of radio, 20 years before. Same guy doing the voice. Yeah, it was great. And those Superman cartoons also had the adventures of Superboy and Krypto. Now, there were two teenagers that came up with the idea of Superman, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, and they infused in this Superman story, which is partly comes from Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter, in that John Carter comes from another planet and has all these powers because he comes from another planet. He can jump really high, and originally Superman couldn't fly. He could just, leap tall buildings in a single bound. He could leap, kind of like the Hulk would later. And then he started flying, and before too long. But initially he was just a leaper, like John Carter in those books that were popular when Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster were kids, and they read those. And there's little bits of Philip Wiley's Gladiator and Doc Savage, who was the Man of Bronze, and Superman was the Man of Steel, and he had a Fortress of Solitude. They took it from a lot of places, but to a large degree, they took him right out of the Bible. And you may think that's ridiculous, but it isn't. I mean, his name is Kal-El, and the family name is El, which if you just open up the Bible sometime, you see, whoa, El or Elohim is the name of God. And in the Bible, there are these angels fallen to earth called the Watchers, which that was kind of taken by Stan Lee a little bit, because there's elements of the Bible infused in all of this superhero stuff, because according to the Bible, there were giants in those days. There were great men of renown. These angels weren't supposed to do this. These were not the good angels. These were the ones that had fallen. They started looking around at these human mortal women and thought, oh, well, they're pretty cute. Maybe I'll take the one as my wife. And they started having children with these mortal women. And then the children would sometimes become gigantic, like giants, or this is all in the Bible. They were called Nephilim, right? So, and then this DNA gets spread in the human population, and that was partly, or the main reason for the flood. The Noah and his family and all the animals survived because they were God was trying to get rid of that, what the angels had done, impure. Anyway. We don't need to get into all that. You're waiting to hear about Superman. I'm building up to the new Superman. But anyway, our country's young. We don't have that many folk heroes. A lot of them have been forgotten, like the Lone Ranger. No kid knows who that is now. Superman's been remembered. Paul Bunyan, Pecos Bill, a lot of these heroes. Davy Crockett, sometimes they're real guys. A lot of times, these characters that are in mythology or stuff, you think, well, There probably was a Hercules. Really, probably was. That stories were concocted about, or, anyway. So Superman is important to our country as a symbol. And we, like these cats that are running around, they're born with knowledge. They already know kind of what to do from the time they're born. Instinct. And we're born with inner things that we remember almost through our DNA. And if you believe this stuff in the Bible to be true, that I think we remember that there were once these giant superpowered beings that they weren't complete evil. Some of them might have been, but they were these anyway. That depends on if you believe that. And I personally believe in the Bible, but and I think they bring this biblical element into this movie, but I don't want to get into it too much until I warn you about, well, I've already did a little bit of a spoiler. We'll get to it, not really. But you'll see later on, I'll explain what I'm talking about, why I'm talking about the Bible. Okay, so, all right. Well, so you have the Adventures of Superman as an adult. Then you have then Siegel and Schuster came up with the idea: why don't we show Superman when he's a teenager, when he's a kid, and he'll be Superboy, and he'll have this dog, Krypto, this dog from his home planet that will fly around and have adventures with him. So they came up in the 40s with Superboy. But they'd already been kind of ripped off by DC. They didn't give permission. I think DC owned Superman. But I don't think they had gotten permission to make the cartoons and the radio show. I could be wrong, but they really shafted. They were making millions, probably billions in today's money with Superman back then. He was just incredibly popular. And Siegel and Schuster, the two young guys that created him, just weren't being compensated properly for what they'd done. So they created Superboy, and years later, I think after they were gone, well, they were finally given some respect in 1978 when the Richard Donner Superman movie came out. They were, I think, invited to the premiere, and they were given money, and they were given credit in the comic book created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, and they were, before they passed away, they were shown appreciation and given some money and all that. But the family still continued to be litigious after they were gone. And some lawyer figured out that in the contracts, when they created Superboy, DC didn't really fully own Superboy. So the Siegel and Schuster families wrestled Superboy away from DC. And they can't use Superboy anymore, at least not the Superboy that will grow up to be Clark Kent. So DC now has a Superboy. They created a different Superboy that's a young guy, but he's a mixture of the DNA of Lex Luthor and Clark Kent, a clone that's a mixture of the two guys. So that's what they did. So they could still use the name Superboy, but it couldn't be that Superboy. And then Krypto, they still owned him, but he no longer could be Superboy's dog on Ma and Pa Kent's farm. So they handed Krypto over to Supergirl, who already had a super cat. I'm not sure what's going on in the current comic continuity. I doubt Streaky the cat is part of it, but he should be. There was also a super monkey. Yeah, I think his name was Beppo. I could be wrong. Okay, so right, I think. Then there was a Super Friends show in the 70s, which was fun for us growing up in the 70s, but I saw that was not the Justice League of America comic that I was reading as a kid, and it's like, oh man, they never fight, they never throw a punch. everything's solved. We'll cooperate and we'll get this solved through the powers of super cooperation. And they don't even use the name Justice League of America. They just call themselves the Super Friends. You know, because Saturday morning TV, there was a big problem that parents and teachers had with Saturday morning cartoons when all the superheroes completely took over Saturday morning cartoons after the Batman series came on in January of '66. And the next season, Saturday morning, it was all superheroes, like completely superheroes, and everything was superheroes. Space Ghost, Frankenstein Jr., you know, the Marvel superheroes were syndicated, and then the next year there was Spider-Man, Fantastic Four. It was all superheroes, and then people were saying, well, there's too much. There's gunfire, and there's Nazis, because Captain America was fighting Nazis. And they just said, well, let's clean this up and make it all nice and politically correct. So it's like, okay, we'll just make everything like nice little groups of teenagers that'll sing a song at the end and everything will be fine, and they'll talk about cooperation and how we shouldn't litter and we should keep the planet nice and all that. Which is, I mean, I grew up in the 70s. It was all right. I am not complaining, but Super Friends was fine. And then 78. Okay, so that was December of 78. So I was in 8th grade, and I remember I didn't see Superman on the opening day. A friend of mine invited me to go, I think, on Friday night, but I went on Saturday morning to the Cinema 4 Theater on Pioneer Parkway in Arlington, Texas, and saw Superman. I could tell you the exact, I think that's now a church, but I could tell you the exact auditorium where I saw Superman, and it was just unbelievably, breathtakingly wonderful. And now when it came out, yeah, everyone loved it. There was, I remember, debate, kind of like there is now about the Christopher Reeves Superman. I mean, everyone says it was a perfect movie, and it was. I mean, Christopher Reeve was a perfect Superman. No, the hell was her name? The Lois Lane was great. Margot Kidder, I thought she was great. I mean, she was portrayed as kind of a mess and everything, smoking and everything. It was a different portrayal. It was like he fell in love with a kind of a not the type girl that Ma and Pa Kent probably is. She was be a difficult woman to bring home to the farm. A little rough around the edges, but she was. Yeah, it was great. It was great. The first part of the movie is like a biblical epic. Oh, and that's the other part. I forgot that they also put in bits of Moses. I mean, that's how the baby Moses was floated down the river, right? It's the same as the baby Kal-El being sent off to Earth. A lot of biblical stuff infused into the Superman story. Plus Doc Savage and John Carter, all kinds of stuff in there. Okay, I'm trying to show how this stuff. I'm trying to show that this stuff, these stories go back thousands of years, not just 10 years ago to Zack Snyder. Because there's a lot of people, I was joking earlier, on YouTube, everything is Superman right now. And there's a lot of people that are saying that this current Superman movie is just absolute garbage, horrible, like beyond words horrible, that it's a disaster. But we'll talk about that later. We're still back in 1978. Okay, so that movie was great. I mean, it had that music, that John Williams music sweeps up, and the beginning of that movie, the opening credits. It seems like they go on for 10 minutes and you don't mind. It's like you're on the most amazing dark ride roller coaster, seeing those words coming at you and the beautiful music, and you're going through space, and oh wow, it was just like, because that music is so perfect that he composed for that movie. And the scenes throughout there. Oh wow, all of the scene where Superman's there in the cornfield after Pa Kent dies and he's looking out. It's kind of like that scene of Luke Skywalker looking up at the twin moons. Just unbelievably stirring. It's a lot of it's John Williams. If it wasn't John Williams, if his music wasn't on that soundtrack, he's a big part of it. And there just aren't film composers like that now. Really, there just aren't. And okay. Oh, there's a scene where helicopters from the top of the Daily Planet building is falling, and Superman grabs it, and he says to Lois Lane, "Don't worry, Miss, I've got you." And she's, "You've got me. Who's got you?" Great stuff. And that music and all the people down on the street can't believe it. And then Lex Luthor appears, and it's a jarring tonal shift. It's a shift in tone. And I'm not knocking that movie. I dearly love that movie, but I remember watching it. It's like, wait a second. This was like a Cecil B. DeMille movie, and all of a sudden it's like a 1966 Batman episode. Lex Luthor is being portrayed as kind of a nut, and Lex Luthor, why does he have Ned Beatty with him? Now, Ned Beatty's a great actor, but he's playing the assistant as a real dummy. Now, if he was a trained killer, but it was a real dummy, well, you'd understand. Okay, he's his muscle, but he's really dumb. But he's not like a trained body, guard, assassin. Say, oh, well, maybe Lex Luthor was stealing these atomic weapons. Maybe this guy is an idiot savant, this Ned Beatty character. Maybe he seems really dumb, but he knows all the nuclear codes, and he can do that. That one thing he's important for. So Lex Luthor keeps this moron around. I mean, we understand why Valerie Perrine was around. I mean, she was good looking. But so he's like, why is Lex Luthor, if he's the greatest mind, why does he have that? That was weird to me as an 8th grader watching the movie. I have to admit. Movie's great. Then Superman 2 came out. It was great. It was a little different. Superman had to give up his powers in order to marry Lois Lane in that. And there was a scene showing Superman, Clark Kent and Lois Lane in bed together. I thought, that's not appropriate for this character. He's not James Bond. And it's because he's a character that is so important to the history as far as representative of our country. It's like showing Uncle Sam in bed with a woman. I just thought, well, that could have been left off camera. But it wasn't graphic or anything. It wasn't like Sean Connery, it was, I guess, tasteful. I question that. I really love Superman 2. I'm not knocking. I'm just talking about things that you could question. Like when he took the Superman shield off his chest and threw it like went around. It's like, wait, when did that power come in? And then didn't he lift things with his eye vision? Couldn't he like shoot his vision out and then lift people up with it? It's like, when did that come into the comic? You could just tell, okay, this is written by someone that kind of knows the comics, but not really. But at the end of the first Superman, 70 Superman the movie is what it was called. Lex Luthor at least takes his wig off when he's taken into prison. And I'm Lex Luthor, and okay, all right. So at least Lex Luthor's bald. Okay, so that's important. Superman 1 and 2 were brilliant movies. I'm not knocking them. I'm only pointing out a few little problems with them because That's all people are doing with this new Superman movie. Okay, so Superman 3, ugh. Well, it had good scenes where he went back to Smallville and met Lana Lang, who was Annette O'Toole, who was beautiful. But then the rest of the movie, I mean, I like Richard Pryor, but that was terrible, let's face it. Then Superman 4 was a Golden Globus movie, and it was beyond terrible. It was unwatchable. Then there was, what else was? What else? Then Superman Returns with Brandon Routh. It was a sequel from what's his face that made some really good. He made X-Men 1 and 2 were great, and then Days of Future Past were great. He made, I forget, Bryan Singer. The Superman, he needed to stick with the X-Men. That Superman movie was not good, and really not memorable. The only thing I remember is he landed a big like 747 down in the middle of a football stadium or a baseball stadium. That's the only thing I remember about that movie. I just thought, and they got a guy, Brandon Routh, that kind of looked like Christopher Reeve a little bit. It was not my kind of movie. And then, I don't know, there's a Superman cartoon in the 90s that was really good. And then I'm going through the whole history of Superman on film that I can remember. Then there was, there was Man of Steel, which I heard so much bad about that I didn't go see it in theaters. I really heard it was bad from people that I trusted. The Zack Snyder movie. And then, I heard that, Pa Kent tells him, maybe you shouldn't be saving these kids. Maybe you should just keep your powers secret. Let these people die. It's like, wait, what? And then, but then they came out on DVD, and I bought it and watched it with my wife and thought, man, this is really a slog to get through, man. This is, and it seems like the Kryptonians were portrayed as being kind of evil, and it was just like it wasn't a fun movie. And Superman's supposed to be fun. And then there was Batman v Superman, which is a stupid title. It's like Batman and Superman are friends, but it's like that's the mentality of a 9-year-old. I want to see them fight. I want to see who will win. And it's like, no, Batman and Superman are friends. What is this shit? And I'd be lying if I didn't say there's amazing parts of that movie. There's scenes in that movie that are really cool. There's a Batman fight in a warehouse. It's like, wow, that's really great. Then, oh man, he's shooting people. Batman didn't, and it's like, and Tim Burton had made that same mistake because Tim Burton doesn't know comic books, and he was portraying Batman as more like the heroes that had inspired Batman, like the Shadow that would shoot people. And Batman did shoot people for a couple of issues in the late 30s, but it didn't last long. The whole point of Batman is he doesn't use guns because that's why he's Batman. His parents were killed by guns. Anyway, it was just a terrible movie, but it had good parts. And then they introduced this Wonder Woman that's really good. And that Wonder Woman movie was great. The first one, the second one was terrible. And then there was a terrible Suicide Squad movie. And then there was a really good one made by James Gunn that was fantastic. And then there was an Aquaman movie that was pretty good. Then I didn't see the second one. And there was a Flash movie that, if you actually watch it, is surprisingly entertaining, even though I hate that actor. It's got some clever ideas. It's got some bad CGI, but I can sit and watch old episodes of Land of the Lost from the 70s and enjoy it. Are the special effects state of the art? No, but it's really an interesting show. It's so, I can... I'm not going to rave about The Flash, but I have to admit, It was a fun. I enjoyed myself. That's what I want when I see a movie, is to have fun. I didn't see it in the theaters. I saw it on video. It was okay. Okay, so then there's that Justice League movie, and then which was redone. Then the director Zack Snyder redid it again. Zack Snyder, as a director, I saw Dawn of the Dead. He remade Dawn of the Dead. I saw that in the theater, and he remade it where the zombies are fast instead of slow. I enjoyed that movie. I thought it was good. He made a movie based on a Frank Miller comic called 300 about the Spartans. I thought that was a great movie. I'd never read the Frank Miller comic. Apparently, he took each individual panel from the comic book and just put it on the screen. When Zack Snyder tries to do movies on his own with no that aren't based on other people's ideas, they fail miserably. Like Sucker Punch, or there was some Dead movie that came out in more recent years, not his remake of Dawn of the Dead, but one that, it was wretched. And he's made some Star Wars type movie that's only on HBO or something that everyone says is terrible. He can't do it on his own. Watchmen, he took individual panels and put them on the screen. He did them exact. And so it made it kind of fun to watch, a lot of it. But then he would choose the most obvious music, like The Times They Are A-Changin' by Bob Dylan. Most obvious choice you could possibly choose. It's a great song, but be more clever than that. Be more clever than getting Flight of the Valkyries for a Vietnam War scene. He's kind of a low IQ guy, it seems like, Zack Snyder. But he can make some pretty visuals. He's like a guy that makes good music videos or TV commercials. He can do that. And but in Batman versus Superman, it was Batman versus Superman. At the beginning, there was some combat scene, and this reporter gets shot, and apparently it's supposed to be Jimmy Olsen. And Zack Snyder said, "Yeah, that's Jimmy Olsen. I didn't have any place for Jimmy Olsen in my movies, in my universe. Your universe, a universe that's been around 80 years before you, and Jimmy Olsen is a great character, a beloved character, although he's never really been shown represented well on screen. In the comics, he's a great character. I mean, the TV show of the 50s is kind of where Jimmy Olsen became the most popular, and he didn't really seem like someone I'd want to be friends with." I mean, it's Superman's best friend, but he just seemed like, oh man, I'd want to stay clear of this guy. He seems a little And then in the 70s Christopher Reeve movies, Jimmy Olsen was there. I don't think he had more than a few lines, and then I think he was there snapping his camera when a dam broke, but he never really did anything. He was just the character that was there. And I don't know where else he might have. Oh, I forgot about Smallville on TV. There was a Smallville TV series. Basically, it would have been Superboy, except they couldn't make a Superboy series. But it's basically Superboy. It was about Superman when he was a teenager with Clark Kent and Lana Lang, but he wasn't wearing the suit yet. I watched it for several seasons. I thought they were great. It really had me hooked. I liked Lex Luthor was a sympathetic guy. He started off kind of like Lex Luthor, and he kind of gradually turned bad. You want in a villain to make a villain interesting. Instead of making them complete evil, you want to be able to get inside the villain's mind and understand them why they think that they're good people. Because usually, not all, well, there are villains in real life that just want to do bad. They're in league with the dark powers, basically. They just want to do that. But usually these bad figures in human history think they're the good guys, but they aren't. And that's why that in the Bryan Singer X-Men movies, the character that Ian McKellen portrayed, and later the other guy portrayed as Magneto. So, okay, I see. These actually means well. He thinks he's doing the right thing and helping these mutants. It's just he's got a different perspective of how to handle this situation. His solution is more violent than Professor X's. So it's interesting. In this new Superman movie that just came out a few days ago, I mean, Lex Luthor is so evil in this that you just. But there are people. I remember people in junior high school that were assholes like this. But at least okay. I'm probably. Well, this one, is this a spoiler? No, I don't think. At least Lex Luthor is able to articulate that he realizes there's something wrong with him, with his jealousy, that he realizes, hey man, I know I'm fucked up. That was I'm not spoiling the movie with that. Because he was able to do that, it makes you realize, oh, okay, this guy, I don't know. Of course, we don't know what looks, because this movie drops you in the middle, like we were all dropped in the middle, because none of us here watching this bought Action Comics #1 off the rack. We all came in 1970 and 1985 in the 90s, buying your first issue of Superman or Action Comics, whatever, and you were dropped right into the middle of a soap opera that had been going on for decades and decades, being read by your dads, granddads, whatever. This was a story that you're dropped into, and that's the way life is. You get dropped into a soap opera, you go to a new school, you get dropped into a whole bunch of drama, and then you got to figure out, okay, what's going on around me? Okay, who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys here at this new school? Then you figure it out. Which is kind of the way this new Superman movie starts. It just starts right in the middle of the action, which people don't complain about with Quentin Tarantino movies. But okay, hold on. I'm trying to see what I've left out. Okay, I think we're ready to talk about the new Superman movie. There are people that dearly love this actor, Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill is a perfectly good actor. He, I think, would make a great Superman, but because of bad direction, he portrays Superman as this dour, depressed God looking down on humanity, and it's just like, oh, I just got to keep doing this. It's like he's not someone happy to be doing what he's doing. There's no joy, there's no sense of fun. He just seems like an unpleasant guy. I guess he looks like Superman, but that's the first Superman for a lot of people. Most people don't read books now. People don't read comics. People haven't read comics. Well, normal people haven't read comics since the 70s. Nerds like us were reading, a lot of them were reading in the 90s, but most were buying comics and like bagging and boarding them and saving them because they thought they'd be investments. They were buying whole boxes of Spawn #1. Comics in the 90s were pretty terrible, in my opinion. But Comics used to be available everywhere, and kids would read them, and then they became unavailable to kids and were only for sale in comic book stores where kids didn't go. So the video games took over, and kids and the adults of today that are now in their 30s and 40s know Superman from a TV series, from a cartoon series in the 90s, from Justice League Unlimited. They know him from the Zack Snyder movies. And they know nothing of the history of Superman. And so when pictures were coming out of the set for this new James Gunn movie, they started to lose their S over this. Like, why is Superman wearing a red diaper? They couldn't take it. They thought it was so stupid that Superman had a red diaper on. It's because they'd never read comics. They'd only seen this. I mean, it seems like he has that in the Superman animated series. I'm pretty sure he does, and Justice League Unlimited. But I guess since the Henry Cavill doesn't, Henry Cavill also didn't have the spit curl. Plus his hairline was back a little bit. That's so. I mean, there were nobody. Christopher Reeve looked exactly like Superman, but George Reeves, I mean, he looked like your dad. Did he have the spit curl? No, I don't think so. He kind of had slicked back. You know, it's very hard to get a guy that looks just like the comic. Christopher Reeve did. Henry Cavill, they could have made him look a little more like Superman. I think. I mean, the spit curl would have helped. This new Superman, David Corenswet, has the spit curl. He has the red trunks. There's odd design work on his Superman suit that I guess is supposed to be alien kind of stuff. I don't know. So, all right, I'll tell you what I think of this new Superman movie, and then I'll give you the spoiler warning. You will see people on YouTube saying this movie is terrible. You will see people saying that it's great. I recommend, if you see anyone that tells you that this movie is not great, that one of the most fun movies in years to see, that this movie's not wonderful, if they say that it's terrible or then you need to unsubscribe from these people, because this movie is brilliant. This movie is fun. Does it have moments that got me, like when that John Williams music soared up, and well, there is the elements of a lot of the John Williams music's there. It doesn't have the full John Williams score, but enough of it that it's there. If that John Williams score had been there, I think it would have. Were there moments that just have tears coming down your face, like the opening credits of the first Superman the movie, or from '78, or the great scenes in that movie? It's up there with it. It's fantastic enough that if anyone does not like this movie, it doesn't mean that they're evil people. You say, well, they just have different tastes than you, Grottu. That's just how they feel. That's their opinion. That's their truth. Yeah, but that means that their opinion is so vastly different from mine that I could never really be friends with them. I could never relate to them. I could never understand them. Any more than someone that only talks about football. I mean, that may be a wonderful, saintly person, but I can't carry on a conversation with you if you're just going to talk about football. Statistics, I don't know anything about it. And if you watch that movie, that had that effect on me, and you thought it was a piece of shit. Sorry, I got. But what I tried to do, okay, man, this guy is saying this movie's terrible. I'm gonna unsubscribe. So I click on it. I'm not subscribed to him. YouTube is feeding me dozens and dozens and dozens of negative reviews from people that I'm not subscribed to. And these people may be just saying they didn't like it just so that they can get into rotation and put up there, because YouTube is specifically putting up, they're trying to fan the flames of this. I guess they're making money off of it by creating this little civil war on YouTube between the people that like this movie and don't. And it's crazy. Yeah, like right now I'm looking at my feed, and this one, what does this one say? Yikes! Superman's James Gunn box office disaster. Warner Brothers panics after pathetic. This movie, what did it make? $250 million over the weekend. Oh, it's just a disaster. Let's see who this person is. They've got a picture of James Gunn crying.
People are going to feel the way they feel about the movie. If you listen to every influencer that was brought out to the premiere and stuff like that, you would have thought that this is just, this movie's going to hit $1 billion.
Oh, it's the Geeks and Gamers guys. It's that. Well, there's a lot of people saying it's all political. It really doesn't feel that way watching the movie. James Gunn said a few things in interviews that. Let's see what this guy says about it. Swaggle House. He's some big comic collector.
This weekend, against my better judgment, I thought to myself, you know what the internet needs? Another random guy's opinion about this movie. I'm sure that my comment section.
All right, let's see what he says. I'm about to get the spoilers in a little bit. Okay, come on. Let's see. What does this guy think? Maybe I'll put the closed captioning on. I can read what he's saying, and I can turn the sound off.
To our own personal identities, okay? It's not a big deal if someone disagrees with you.
No, it is a big deal, because this movie is so great. If someone disagrees and hates this movie, there's something wrong with it.
What did I think about the Superman film?
Yeah.
In short, I didn't really like it.
Ha! Well, I don't like him. I'm just kidding. He's a wonderful guy. Yeah, they'll say it's mid, it's meh. That's what they'll say. You watch that movie and tell me if it's mid, meh.
Kind of slop movie. If I was going to put a number on it, I probably would give it a 5.5 out of 10. You know, slightly above that of things like Fast and the Furious or Jurassic World Part 17. You know, it was a little bit more interesting than that. James Gunn is certainly a very capable filmmaker, so he can kind of polish a kind of movie that's a little bit disjointed and make it a little more palatable. But if I'm being truly honest here, I think that this movie had a ton of problems with it. And in this video, I'm definitely
it's problematic.
All of it. Now, a few more caveats here before you guys start to accuse me of being a Snyder bro. I also thought Man of Steel was a deeply flawed movie. I'm also not a DC hater. I loved James Gunn's Peacemaker. I actually really liked what he did with Suicide Squad as well. And
okay, well, all right. So that guy Swaggle House doesn't really like it. James Gunn reflects on being fired by Marvel. Yeah, but
the Suicide Squad.
I bet that wasn't fun. Okay, this guy's saying, Superman, it disappointed me. No spoilers.
Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
Okay.
My most anticipated movie of the year.
Some British guy. I'm not subscribed to him. It's someone that looks like they're trying to be a male model, and it's like, but you can tell this guy's never read a comic book in his life. Look at this guy.
12 years since Man of Steel.
You think that guy has ever read a comic?
This is why we didn't continue with, and I hate to use the word, but the Snyderverse.
Oh man, it's so okay. All right, I'm gonna get into spoilers. So we're at just go see the movie and come back at 50 minutes into this video and resume after you've seen the movie. And I wait till I get to the 50-minute mark. I'm at 49 minutes, 42 seconds. So, spoilers coming up. So, hobble over to your remote control with your walker and turn it off. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, spoilers. Okay. All right, so you've seen the movie if you're watching at this point. So I feel my conscience is clear. Okay, everything we've seen in most of the trailers is the beginning of this movie. The movie explains that metahumans have been around for thousands of years. It's basically, they're not calling them superheroes, they're calling them metahumans. I don't know if this is something James Gunn is promoting, metahuman, or if this is what's currently used in the comics, because I don't read the comics right now, really, at all. So, I don't know when metahumans started, but it's the term they're using. So, I explained that the most powerful metahuman of all appeared 3 years ago and has been working for 3 years, and now he's just lost his first fight. And then you see that scene where he's falling down into the ice in Antarctica. You know, he barely almost got to the Fortress of Solitude, and he's bleeding and breathing like his lungs have been punctured, and he calls for crypto. You've seen that in all the trailers or all over YouTube. And so that's how it begins. And he's taken back to the Fortress of Solitude, where there are robots with capes called Superman robots, and it's right out of the comics. Although I remember the Superman robots looking all like Superman. And you could send them out kind of as decoys. It may be different in the comics now. My time period was the Silver Age and Bronze Age. That's the time period I really read. Okay, so they infuse him with some light from the sun with a big giant magnifying glass to get it, because that's where his powers come from, the yellow sun. And it's a painful procedure, so they're playing the fragment of what was left of a communication from his parents on Krypton that they'd sent on his spaceship, but they only have, the robots have only been able to recover part of this, of what they're saying, and they say, we want you to help the people of Earth, help them and all that, kind of like Marlon Brando did back in the old days. So, and, to distract him from the pain, they play this tape of his parents over and over again. Okay, so that becomes important later because Lex Luthor manages to get into his Fortress of Solitude and recover the entire message. And then later in the message, they say, we want you to help the people of Earth. And then it kind of cuts, but we also want you to rule this planet. And there are bad people, and you need to get rid of them. And then you basically need to take a lot of wives and have as many children as you possibly can, which is what Jeffrey Epstein was wanting to do on his ranch, right? To spread your seed, your DNA, so that we could make this, so the Earth can become a new Krypton, and everyone could be like super-powered people. And so he releases that to everyone's, and then on TV, and then everyone turns on Superman, realizing, oh, he's here to take over and become king and impregnate everyone. But he'd never heard that part from his parents, and that's not how he was raised by Ma and Pa Kent, and that's not him. Well, you pick up on something later when you think about this movie later on the next day. You remember, okay, when he first talks, he's in Metropolis and he's talking to his parents. Ma and Pa Kent, and they say, you need to call more often. We never hear from you. And it's like, oh, okay. He's gone to Metropolis. Last 3 years, he's not talking to his parents back on the farm, very rarely. And when he goes to, the robots in Fortress of Solitude play this tape over and over again of his Kryptonian parents. He has this dream of his Kryptonian parents. Maybe he's even a little embarrassed about his hick parents because they're not portrayed as this, noble Glenn Ford, and it's more like I'm a grandpa from Hee Haw, and it's like they're just like real country folk, and and again, this is a spoiler, so you're supposed to turn this off. By the end of the movie, you realize these robots, of course, since I warned you as a spoiler, the robots are okay at the end of the movie, which is fine, which is great. He's playing tapes of his human parents. He's realized those are the parents that really raised him with the values he has now. Now, initially, if you're I don't like Jor-El and Lara portrayed as wanting their son to come and basically take over Earth. But apparently that is what John Byrne brought in the 90s. I remember picking up Man of Steel it was maybe the mid 80s. Was that about 86? DC thought that kids weren't reading their comic books because they couldn't understand them. In reality, kids weren't reading their comic books because they were first of all, they weren't on comic racks anymore. They were only they were getting direct distributed to comic stores. Secondly, they were playing video games and they didn't have time for comic books anymore. So they decided to shit can all their continuity with Crisis on Infinite Earths and start everything over. And then they hired John Byrne, who's a great artist, but I don't think he's a good writer, to redo the Superman comics. And he's the guy that started this, the Kryptonians maybe being bad. And I remember Man of Steel, that was in that too. The Kryptonians were kind of not good people. In the Christopher Reeve movie, that was one thing that was different about the Christopher Reeve movie in '78. In the comics, the tragedy of Krypton is it was everyone was young and athletic looking and beautiful, and there were beautiful spires and beautiful cities, and that Krypton was a wonderful place like Atlantis that was such a tragedy that it was destroyed. But in the Superman the movie, it was like everyone was older. Everyone had white hair. Everyone was like my age or older, it seemed like. And, it just seemed like it was a planet that it was dying for a long time. So when it blows up, it doesn't have as much of a sense of tragedy as if it's this young, youthful, vibrant planet. I'm not sure why they made that choice, but they had Marlon Brando there. I think they paid him it was a huge sum then. I think it was $1 million to play Jor-El. And so he came in and probably filmed all his scenes in a day or two, and he didn't memorize his lines. He had them all written down there. He's looking down at the baby. He had them written there inside the little crystalline spaceship. Because that's Marlon Brando. It wasn't that Marlon Brando thought that it would be better, more realistic, because when people memorize lines, they speak and they never stop. They never stop to think. They just, and it seems unnatural. Normally, when people talk, there's pauses and people stop to think, what should I say next? Should I say that next? And Anyway, I guess I don't think anyone stopped to tell Marlon Brando, Mr. Brando, it's pronounced Krypton, not Krypton, but he says, I'm blasting you off from the planet Krypton. It's like, okay, you call it Krypton if you want. Of course, they're speaking English in this movie. It was a very smart idea to show his parents speaking this other language, which was, I think that was a smart idea. Yeah. Now, if you're going to get into that, Superman's not going to have a Kryptonian accent because he came here as a baby. But Supergirl should have an accent, like she's from another country, but it's another planet. She should have a Kryptonian accent, if you're gonna go with that. But anyway, and Supergirl is seen in this, and she's drunk out of her mind, and she's there to pick up because Crypto at the end, because Crypto has been Superman's been babysitting Crypto for the whole movie. It's really Supergirl's dog, and she's been off getting drunk on other planets, which I thought, well, okay, and that apparently is from the more current comics from early 2000s, maybe late 90s. There's some series called Superman Woman of Tomorrow, and apparently Supergirl just flies around other planets because she can't get drunk with the yellow sun, but if she goes somewhere where there's a red sun like Krypton had, she loses her powers and could get drunk. But then if she loses her powers, how does she fly away from the planet? I don't know. But I that's apparently what's going on in the comics now, and so that's what Zack Snyder's doing. I accepted it. It didn't bother. It was unusual, but I didn't. Back to what I'm trying to say is, would I rather Jor-El and Lara be noble and heroic like they've been always? Yes, but that is one of the focal points of this movie. Superman has to realize that his parents, he has this thought of how great noble his parents are in Krypton. In reality, they're not really the people that raised him. The people that are noble and wonderful are this hick couple that probably was embarrassing to him growing up. Because he's on a farm and he's not listening to country music, he's listening to punk rock music, which shows that he was trying to rebel against, because normally on a farm you wouldn't be listening to punk rock music. And Zack Snyder concocts, but because he's out on a farm, he's not real hip and he's listening to this really shitty punk rock music. So Zack Snyder has to concoct a fake punk rock band with a really terrible song. They're called the Mighty Crab Trees or Crab Joys or something, and it's just a poppy punk song where they're going oi oi oi, and it's silly. It's apparently a real band from Atlanta or something that are just doing this as a joke. And I think they have a song by this fake band in the Creature Commandos cartoon as well. So basically, in the Zack Snyder DC universe, that's a band. He's creating fake music. There's a scene earlier in the movie where Lois Lane talks about being kind of a street punk when she was younger, or being a punk rocker, and he says, well, yeah, I like punk rock too. And he throws off the names of 3 bands that I've never heard of. I think they're all fake bands. And she says, no, those aren't real punk bands. Those are, that's like listening to, like Green Day, something that normies listen to that's really shitty. That, people that go to Hot Topic, yeah, that's really, that kind of thing. And then when she goes to Superman's farm and meets his parents, she sees his childhood bedroom and he's got a poster of this stupid band. And it's all really charming. There's, I think, a fantastic chemistry between the act. Well, I knew that when they cast Rachel, it's Rachel, right? Brosnahan. That she's a great actress. Damn, it is Rachel Brosnahan. I better make sure. we watched the marvelous Miss Maisel on whatever streaming channel that was. That was a great series until the last season when they got a little bit too into the modern stuff that I won't get into that. They got a little political. Well, looks like someone has some new Fantastic Four footage on YouTube. Oh, the Thing finally took his shirt off. I was wondering what. There's some good word coming out about the Fantastic Four movie. The fact that the Thing doesn't look like the Thing because he's always covered up, it was kind of bothering me. But I'm starting to get a little excited because that was always my favorite comic book. But so really, I should be super excited. Then I'm the female Silver Surfer. I went, And now people are starting to get excited about the female Silver Surfer because when she appears, her voice is really creepy and scary, and apparently it's becoming a big viral thing on TikTok or wherever the heck kids go. These young whippersnappers are really getting into the voice of this actress playing the Silver Surfer. I have hated the Marvel movies for the last chunk of years since Endgame. Has there been anything good? Only the third Guardians of the Galaxy and the last Spider-Man movie. Other than that, everything's been atrocious. But okay. I'm just making sure it's Rachel because I want to say her name properly. Now, movie stars used to have names like Clark Gable and Marilyn Monroe. They weren't their real names. They would come up with a name that's memorable. It looks good on a marquee. And now I think people are just using their real names because David Corenswet is not. Yeah, Rachel Brosnahan. Oof, thank goodness. I didn't want to say her name wrong because I really like her. I think she's a beautiful young lady with great personality, and there's great chemistry between her and David Corenswet. They're a great Lois Lane, and she has a little bit of the Margot Kidder in her. It's great, and I just ever. But what I've always loved about I've always loved the period of the '60s and the '50s when Mort Wessinger was in charge, and there's a when Superman and had all this insane science fiction elements in it. There was a shrunken city from his home planet of Krypton called Kandor. Well, wait a second. I wonder if James Gunn is going to put that in his movie. Because if Krypton turns out to really be a bunch of dicks, then you have a city bottled up, then you would have a whole city of assholes. Yeah, because it seems like James Gunn is following a lot of the actual old stories. I love that Superman had a giant key that opened the door to the Fortress of Solitude. This movie doesn't have it, but it does have the door that opens up. It has. Now, people have been worried about whether this movie has too many characters. Because it has Metamorpho and Mr. Terrific and the Guy Gardner Green Lantern and Hawk Girl. I've never read a comic with Guy Gardner in it. Hal Jordan, I know Hal Jordan, I know Alan Scott, the Golden Age Green Lantern. That was something that came in Guy Gardner actually went back to appeared first in like 1970 in Green Lantern, but he as the character with the bowl cut in the comedic Justice League that started in the late 80s. I just never read those comics. Now, they might be great. People tell me they're great. My instinct was to not like them. But I watched this movie. I like this Guy Gardner character is an asshole, but he's likable. Hawk Girl, I don't know this Hawk Girl, but I like the character. There's been a lot of Hawkmans and Hawk Girls over the years. I kind of know the ones from the Silver Age. Hawk Girl without Hawkman, I don't know when that started. That might have started with the Justice League cartoon in the 90s. To have that just her, but without, I don't know. But she's perfectly great. Now, this Mr. Terrific character, another character, I've never read a comic book with Mr. Terrific. I just know him as a character from the Justice Society. I know the original Mr. Terrific from the 40s. This character, if he's like that in the comic book, this is a tremendous character. I mean, he really a cool character. He's like right out of, he's really cool. Really, that actor, whoever he is, really pulls off that role in a great way. Yeah, these are all really likable characters. And then Metamorpho appears. And normal people that are doing these angry rants on YouTube, they don't know who Metamorpho is. They don't know any of these characters. So they're, Metamorpho's great in it. He's not in it long. It's just fantastic seeing these characters. There's, Jimmy Olsen for the first time, really probably since the 1950s TV series, actually does something. Although in the TV series, he was kind of dumb. I had heard that, Lex Luthor has a girlfriend in Superman the movie from 1978, but the Christopher Reeve movie. Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor. Has a girlfriend, Valerie Perrine, named Eve Teschmacher. And she, helps Superman out and get kryptonite off of his neck and things. And she's, it was a beautiful actress. She's pretty ill now, but she's still, wonderful person. She's still around. That character was created for that movie. There was never a regular girlfriend for Lex Luthor. I don't even know if there ever was one in the comic. I don't remember that. And in the comic, I always remember Lex Luthor being much older than Superman. But now it seems to be, no, there was, in the old days he was. But then I think that changed in the Silver Age because they showed Lex Luthor was mad at Clark Kent because of stuff that happened, and he lost his hair because of, that's not in this Superman movie, blaming him for losing his hair. That's left behind in the comics. Okay, what am I talking about? Jimmy Olsen appears, and this Miss Teschmacher, although she's never referred to, I don't think, in this movie as Miss Teschmacher, but she's referred to as Eve. So that's the same character from the other movie. She's in love with Jimmy Olsen, and she's always taking these selfies. She's all self-absorbed, and when she takes these selfies, she's getting pictures of what Lex Luthor's doing on maps and plans behind her. She's taking all these selfies, and she has evidence of what Lex Luthor's doing. And then she feeds it to Jimmy Olsen, who's a reporter from the Daily Planet, desperate to go out on a date or a weekend with Jimmy Olsen. And you see all the girls in the news office looking over at Jimmy Olsen, swooning over him. And now I had heard that Miss Teschmacher was going to be throwing herself at Jimmy Olsen. He was kind of rejecting her. I'd heard that, and I thought, okay, so they're going to be, I thought they were going to do something else with Jimmy Olsen, but no, he's a ladies' man. But he's not into this girl because she's very shallow, and he's just not into her because she's dating Lex Luthor. But he has to humor her to get stuff from her, and it's yeah, I Jimmy Olsen was always a cool character. I mean, and I'm glad that they're. This is the first time I've ever seen Jimmy Olsen portrayed as cool. Zack Snyder, Jimmy Olsen was someone he wanted to kill instantly because he thought that's what you do with Jimmy Olsen, because he didn't know what to do with him, because he doesn't know what to do with things, because he's not creative. Visually, he can put things on screen that are cool, but he doesn't generate ideas. He takes other people's ideas and makes them fancier or brings them to life. Jimmy Olsen's great. Perry White's great. Okay, so the beginning of the movie, it's established that, Superman comes back. He's fighting basically a clone of himself, basically like a Bizarro Superman. And he gets beaten to shit by himself. And you find that out later, that it's a clone of himself that Lex Luthor created. And so he winds up injured, and the Superman robots restore him his health, but that he goes off to continue the fight with the guy that just beat him up. And they say, no, you're only 85%. So you never see Superman fully powered in the movie. He starts injured horribly and then gets restored to health, but you never see him at full power. Maybe at the very end of the movie. So, people criticizing this movie, they're criticizing his red underwear, they're criticizing that he whines too much. He's just portrayed as a simple guy from the farm that is really genuinely wants to help people, even save squirrels. He doesn't want anyone hurt. He's just a good person, not a bad bone in his body. And people like that do exist. You may be cynical, but the more you get away from major metropolitan areas, you'll see there are people like that would just bend over backwards for people. There really are good people still out there. And he was brought up by good people and all that. So there's scenes where his eyes are red in the commercials, and people thought, is that because he's using his heat vision? It burns around his eyes? That looks dumb. That's not in the comics. No, that's because the evil Superman is blasting heat vision. He's like at his face this far away from him and shooting heat vision into his eyes, and it burns him because he's fighting another Kryptonian, and it's which is himself. And Lex Luthor is programming this thing to throw certain punches and moves. Lex Luthor's mind is working through Superman's strength to beat the shit out of Superman. Lex Luthor's people seem eccentric, but they seem smart. It's not like, what was his name? Otis O'Toole. No, I'm thinking of Annette O'Toole. Otis Toole, that was Henry Lee Lucas's assistant. No, it was Otis. I don't remember what his name was in the Superman movie. This is Christopher Reeve movie. Yeah, I'm remembering the name of a serial killer. That's not him. Yeah, the people that work for Lex Luthor look like those kind of idiot Silicon Valley kind of hipster types, and they look like they're dangerous, smart people. What else do we see in this movie? Okay, you see incredibly cool stuff that's right out of an old comic book, and it's just expected because you're living in a world like, let's say you live in Beirut or you live on the Gaza Strip. You kind of expect to see explosions and buildings falling down every couple of days. And people in Metropolis, okay, there's a giant kaiju monster running around smashing buildings. Okay, well, what's going to happen next week. It's just you get used to it, you get numb to it. And there's this scene where it's really great. Superman and Lois are having this romantic conversation. She says, well, look what's happening outside my picture window. And there's this gigantic space amoeba from another dimension out there glowing. And he says, don't worry, they've got it covered. It's because the other members of what will later become the Justice League, Green Lantern and Hawk Girl and Mr. Terrific are fighting. It's like, oh, that's just one of those intergalactic sprites. We can keep talking. They don't need me. It just, just like, shit, it's, there's bad lightning. It's just like, it's just brushed off. As Lois goes, oh, okay. That's, to me, is cool. I think that this will become more and more as people have a chance to absorb this movie and think about it and watch it more than once. People will understand how great this movie is, and that it actually is putting comic books on the screen without embarrassment. Almost always in the history of film, there has been an element of embarrassment to make a comic book movie because it's just gonna look too silly. And this movie doesn't care. You bring in Metamorpho. They never call him Metamorpho. They call him Rex. This is his real name. You just accept that this exists. And people want origin stories for all this. I mean, no, that's not what you do. That first Fantastic Four movie from 20 years ago, it spent the first hour on the origin. No, people want to see the Fantastic Four. You can tell them. You don't need, now, Superman, the movie in 78, it probably was a good 45 minutes to an hour before you see Superman fly. But that was different. That was the beginning of it all. You start, I don't have a problem with them starting. It's like, to me, people are like, well, start right in the middle of things. Well, if you picked up a comic book off the spinner rack, a lot of times it was the second or third part of a story that had been going on. And as a kid, you read it and you figured out what was going on on the fly. And that's what this movie does. It mimics the experience of reading a comic book from the 60s and 70s so well that if someone hates it, that means that they don't like comic books. They don't understand comic books. They like violent Zack Snyder movies. That's basically what it is. This is a comic book movie. I'm trying to think of it. And with a comic book movie, I want joy and I want fun. One of the most joyful, fun things I've ever seen. It's like, it would be fun to be a superhero and save the girl and lift her up in a helicopter and she's holding on to, that would be fun. And you've got the John Williams music soaring around you like in the 1978 movie. That would be a lot of fun. And when you show it as someone being tortured because of this, probably one of the most fun scenes I've ever seen was in X-Men Days of Future Past, where you see Quicksilver stop a whole bunch of bullets coming from the police at his friends. And he just runs around like he's super fast and is just having fun doing all this crazy stuff. And then at the last minute, he goes and plucks the bullets out of the air and makes them go different directions. And it's all set to Jim Croce's Time in a Bottle. And then the music ends, and then it goes back to regular text. He's having so much fun. And then you see his basement where he's living with his mom. And it's just nothing but arcade machines and because this takes place in the 70s, I think. He's got, because basically anything he wants, he just goes super fast into a store, gets it, and takes it. So his basement is everything. A kid, issues of National Lampoon. It's just everything that a kid could want is he gets it all for free. It's oh yeah, scene with Mr. Terrific, just and Green Lantern knocking these soldiers out. It's just, oh man, it's so much fun. And the John Williams music is used to a certain degree in, well, to a large degree in this new Superman movie. It's just a lot of fun. And so I have to say, someone that says they really hate this movie, really hates this movie, they're just not comic book people. They don't get it. They don't think like we do. They're if they hate this movie, then what they're saying to you is, I'm a normal, boring person. Now, having said that, oh man, I did something today that I didn't think I would do. Have you noticed that now when you call people on the phone at the bank, or whenever you talk to someone, at the restaurant, whatever, you make an order at the restaurant, the waitress will always say perfect. It's become a new thing, like have a nice day. In the last year and a half, I thought it was just a regional thing around here, but I think I'm hearing people in other parts of the country say perfect, perfect, perfect. And this morning, I went into the drugstore and to renew my blood pressure medication, and just said it'll be ready tomorrow. And I said perfect. It said, oh no, now I'm doing it. I didn't say that out loud to them, but just like, oh no, I become one of those people that says perfect all the time, man. I don't know. I pulled a couple of random boxes from the attic. Don't worry, it's air conditioned. And I want to show you what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Because perhaps you don't understand what the hell I'm talking about. I think a lot of people don't understand. Okay, so what is James Gunn doing? This movie is so crazy. He's trying to recreate this. Do you see what you're seeing here? If you think this is stupid, then you're not going to like this movie. This is what the movie looks like. Lois Lane is flying Mr. Terrific's little flying machine around. And it looks not that different from the... Oh, look at this, man. This is when Batman was on TV. How about that? This is what a comic book looks like, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of you collect comics, but you've never seen inside of one because you buy them slabbed. Do you see? There's Crypto. James Gunn is, God damn. I'm sorry, I don't mean to take the Lord's name in vain. Gosh darn, this is just so much fun. In fact, should I have this bagged and boarded? Yes, I should. I'm sorry. This is just, I pulled a couple of S boxes because I wanted their Super Baby. I just thought I would let you see what comic books look like for those Zack Snyder people out there. This is what a comic. Do you notice that Superman has red shorts on? At some point, they decided that just looks too silly. Batman wears shorts too. Crypto, we've been tricked. The lead coating on these sculptures of my Kryptonian ancestors is melting. The deadly kryptonite underneath it is killing us. Ooh, oh, look at that. Look at that. Crypto's wearing a whole suit. Superboy visits the 50th century. Jor-El, Val-El, Hatu-El, and Gamel. Like Carrie Gamel. Carrie Gamel. I hope he's still around, isn't he? He lived in Fort Worth. He was a friend of my friend, Joe Riley, that made the Hypnotic Eye TV show. He was always talking about Carrie Gamel. He was good friends with him. Here's a Superboy without a cover. Man, I'd love to get that issue of Showcase with the Maniacs. Yeah, I sometimes I wind up with comics that don't have covers. Still fun to read. Look at these 116 planes, only $1.25. Look at that. Do you know what they look like? Let me show you something. Man, we've been talking a long time, ladies and gentlemen. I just had them. I've got a whole bunch of these. They were my older brother's. I think this is what you see in those that ad. You see that? These kind of little airplanes. Yeah, I think we just saw this one, didn't we? Oh. I got a whole bunch of these things. Now, I don't think my brother ordered them from a comic book. He probably bought them at a 5 and dime, which they call dollar stores now. Oh, look at that. It's Drew the dog, and there's Kelly the cat. How about that? Yeah. Remember Hatu-El? Yeah, El means God. It's not very subtle. Okay, well, we don't... Of course, Superboy would fly into the future and hang out with the Legion of Superheroes. I'm not going to show you all these comics, don't worry. Let's get to Superman, because... Oh, look at this. It's Super DC Giant Love, 1971. This is what it was like to be in love in 1971. Now, is this what the Superman movie that I watched yesterday felt like? I would say yes. Here's a facsimile of Superman #1, which came out a year after his first appearance in Action Comics #1. Here's a fake copy of Superman #97 that comes from Pizza Hut. So my oldest real issue of Superman is Superman 136. Now, does this look more like the Zack Snyder movie or more like the James Gunn movie? Is the question. Superman's fighting a giant ape. Well, didn't we see that? Yeah, Superman fought giant monsters. If you're going to see a Superman movie and you're expecting something different than this, then you're in the wrong place. Yeah. The Last Days of Superman. Man, I need to just spend the rest of the summer reading these books. Oh, and then I don't remember when it happened. I don't remember if it was the mid 70s or more in the late 70s that there was an issue where it was explained that Superman's glasses, Clark Kent's glasses, were made from the glass on the spaceship that sent him to Earth. And when he puts the glasses on, it bends light and it makes Clark Kent look different. So as soon as he puts the glasses on, he looks different and people don't recognize him as Superman. And that is brought up in this movie by Green Lantern and to Lois Lane, and Lois Lane, of course, already knows it. And then Lois Lane is like, "Man, Clark Kent's telling his secrets to everybody, even this asshole." And anyway, it's a fun movie, man. Superman 175. I've got tons of Superman books. They didn't used to be. I don't. They're probably still not very expensive. I don't know. Maybe I should just. Yeah, I'm not going to show you every one of them. Let me just pull out some good ones. They're all good. What am I talking about? See, that's the way that I think of Superman as looking now. I think David Corenswet looks like that. I could see Henry Cavill looking like that. Brandon Ruth, I don't know. Christopher Reeve looks like that. I even see a little George Reeves in that, the way he's drawn there. I don't know. There's nothing better to do during the summer than reading Superman comics. I don't think. This is what I'm talking about. This is the Fortress of Solitude that he opened with that big giant key that only he could lift. Yeah, he didn't want to kill that big giant creature that appeared. The other future Justice League, they called, Guy Gardner wants to call it the Justice Gang. He didn't want to kill, he wanted to take that animal to an interplanetary zoo, which is something Superman would do. Superman didn't like to kill things. Yeah, Lex Luthor's guys look a lot like that in the movie. Yeah. Fantastic. The greatest super stories published during the last 28 years. At this point, Superman had only been around 28 years. Look at that. You see Crypto encased like that in the movie. What I'm showing you here is showing you that everything you see in that movie is from this time period when these comics were crazy. Now, a lot of these great ideas that were in these comics at this time came from guys that were writing science fiction before comics were created. There's a guy named Otto Binder that wrote a lot of the Captain Marvel stories, but he also created Crypto and created a lot of this stuff. Otto Binder. He also created a robot character, Adam Link. Adam Link's been in a lot of EC Comics did an Adam Link story, and there was some Adam Link stories in Warren magazines, like Creepy. He's been around. Look up Adam Link. Okay, now we're getting into the Neil Adams period where they're starting to draw a little bit differently as 1970 approaches. Ooh, boy. What happened there? This one, you see, there were spinner racks in the 7-Elevens that were a lot of times right by the window, the big glass window. And sometimes comics would get bleached by the sun. That's probably what happened here. Look at this, this one. All the red is gone, pretty much. But, you know, the interior is going to be fine. I just, yeah, don't like that. But that was a fact that we had to deal with back in the old days. Oh, and then that whole thing with the Elohim, they doubled down on the whole, that thing, and that all of Superman, the main figures in Superman's life have double L's. There was Lori Ramirez that he fell in love with. There was Lana Lang. There was Lois Lane. And, of course, there's Lex Luthor. And I'm sure there's some other LLs I'm not thinking of right now because I haven't had enough sleep. Yesterday I drove almost an hour to see Superman because it's not playing at the local theater. They're playing How to Kill Your Dragon or something. How to Eat a Dragon. But maybe they'll bring Superman in a couple of weeks here, and then I can take my wife. I wasn't able to take her yesterday, but I'd like to see what she thinks of that movie. She's not really a comic book reader, but I think if you're not a comic book reader, you just may be completely confused by the movie. I guess. It seems like that's the way it is. These people are into the Zack Snyder. If you're into Zack Snyder, that means you don't really understand these characters because this is I think they just did a facsimile of this one. This is an important issue. And this is referenced in the movie. They say that Superman's been around for 3 years, and they said there's no longer any kryptonite on the planet. So it must be after Superman got rid of all the kryptonite on Earth. But Lex Luthor's able to Metamorpho synthesize it because he's kidnapped Metamorpho's baby and is threatening the baby. Metamorpho doesn't cooperate, but Metamorpho, of course, is a good guy, so he realizes what's going on. Yeah, I've got tons of Superman. You don't need to see these. I mean, you might want to. If you want to, put a note down below and I'll show you more. I don't give a shit. I want to show you some Lois Lane comics. So, yeah, Rachel Brosnahan is great. She's a very charming actress. Now, you'd have to look at these illustrations to determine which Lois Lane you think is the best of all the people, all the women that have played her. People, what am I saying? These Lois Lane comics they're fun, they're great, but, you know, I think boys were kind of embarrassed to buy these. This was for your sister to buy, but there's an artist named Kurt Schaffenberger that draws these Lois. I like this style. Look at that. Look how Superman's drawn. There's just look at that. There's so much personality here in his drawing style. Okay. See, this is the kind of wacky stuff that happened in these comics that I love so much. And see, notice that everybody's got underwear on. Doesn't that horrify you? You all use Zack Snyder people. But anyway, Just deal with it. That's comic books, man. They wear underwear. It comes from the old circus strongmen. I mean, there's a tradition behind it. Don't worry about it, man. These are comic books made for little kids, man. And there's all these 40-year-old people on YouTube arguing about them. Arguing about books that are based on this. Look at Lois Lane there. Can you see Rachel Brosnahan there as this character? The three wives of Superman. Those were the three loves of Superman's life. Laurie Lemurus, a mermaid, Lois Lane, and Lana Lang. Lana Lang was his high school crush. And then, of course, he met Lois Lane once he got to Metropolis. Of course, she's the one that wins out. Look, they've got a truce between Lois Lane and Lana Lang. Now, it seems like Jimmy Olsen, didn't he have a thing for Lois? It was Lana Lang's little sister, right? And I'm trying to remember, man. Oh, see, stuff like this, for anyone that wants to question that big kaiju creature, oh man, this book is crunched. See, that's not a fold in the bag there. That's a fold in the whole comic. But what can you do? You don't find these books that often. I had to get it. Here's Lois Lane going back in time and trying to steal that's Lois Lane getting slapped. It says, real, not imaginary. See what happens when Lois time travels to Krypton before it exploded, and see Lois court Jor-El, who will someday become the father of Superman. That's pretty creepy. She's going back to Superman's dad, and she says, this is Lara saying, Lois, you thief, how dare you try to steal Jor-El? He's my boyfriend. And Lois is saying, what rotten luck. On Earth, Lana Lang is my rival for Superman. Here on Krypton, Lara is battling me for Jor-El. And look, it's Batman and Superman going to play a joke on her. When comics went from 10 cents to 12 cents, a lot of boys stopped buying comics there in late 1962. But girls didn't stop. The extra 2 cents didn't stop girls. So the sales of Lois Lane remained consistent, and Archie comics that were bought primarily by girls. But Superman in Action, the comics that had Superman and Lois Lane, but they were more aimed at guys, the sales dropped on a lot of those books in that time period, because, 2 cents doesn't seem like a lot to us now, but it meant something then. If only psychologically, because comics had been 10 cents since their inception. Yeah, I got to get more of these Lois Lanes. I don't know how I could do it. There's no comic stores real close to me, but... Oh, this is an issue that I think is kind of sought after, because you've got Catwoman, and she looks... This is obviously after the TV series premiered. Well, I'm trying to remember. Is this the first time she appeared in the Silver Age? Or is it because her suit? Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. But it's tied in with the TV series. And then here's a beat-up copy of the same issue. So anyway, that's a more expensive book. This one I always thought was a cool cover. She's got luminous flying fish forming a Superman figure. Look at that. Pretty neat. Well, you know, the thing about Lois Lane, Rachel Brosnahan sure looks a lot more like her than Amy, what's her name? Amy Adams in the Zack Snyder movies. What is Trump saying? The United States Supreme Court. I'm not sure what's going on right now with Donald Trump. There's some weird stuff happening. A lot of people are starting to lose faith. I don't know if it's a big kayfabe thing, but people are starting to question what's going on. I'm still trying to keep the faith. Anyway, my point in showing these books is, well, first of all, a lot of you, that's why you tune into this channel, is to see books, but is to show that the movie that's out in theaters right now is very much in the spirit of this. Hopefully she won't be marrying the devil in the future movie. Anyway, it keeps going. Oh, let's get to the Jimmy Olsen. I'm going to skip over the rest of the Lois Lane. There's a Jimmy Olsen. That's number 42. Now, the Jimmy Olsen comic started because of his popularity on the 1950s TV series with George Reeves. Superman's pal. Yeah, he's kind of like Archie, a red-haired guy that all the girls are like gaga over, and except I think he's a lot smarter than Archie. The same basic. Yeah, this is the fun and joy of the Silver Age. If you don't think this is cool, if you think that's just silly, well then you don't understand why I like comics. You just don't get it. I mean, I like fun, I like silliness, I like whimsy, and all of that. The Red-Headed Beetle of 1000 BC. Something tells me this is a comic from 1964, 65, early days of the Beatles, obviously. The Demon from Pandora's Box. See, look at that, man. There's a lot of fun that awaits you if you step inside the world of the Silver Age and Bronze Age. Can you handle it? Another Beatles influenced cover. Yes, indeed. Fantastic. Well, all I can tell you is you should go see the Superman movie that's in theaters. This one here was once owned by Ed Steinman. He put it in marker and ballpoint pen so you would remember. Someone might do. I don't know if anyone would be interested except me. If someone ever did a channel on YouTube where they found the people that once owned these comics, that would be kind of interesting. Someone hunted down Ed Steinman. Probably be kind of hard, but I probably bought that comic in Texas, so it might be a Texas comic, but who knows where it came from. And what's more, you have a better chance if some kid filled out a coupon in the comic but never clipped it out. They like, I want to order this, I'm going to fill out the coupon, but then they never were given the money by their parents, and just it stayed in the comic. You can get their name and their address of where they lived in 1963, and then maybe you could find that person. More than likely, most, people probably aren't still around, but I don't know, that would be kind of interesting, probably, maybe fine. To me, it would be interesting. But I'm not normal. What the hell time is it? What am I doing sitting here talking to you? It's, it must be later than I think. It's 7 minutes till 7 at night. This is Monday, what day is today? It's either the 14th or the 15th. I have no idea. I don't have a calendar around here. It's either the 16th or the 17th of July that I did my first video on YouTube 7 years ago in 1999. 7 years ago, no, in 2019, the summer before the COVID-19 fad. So it gets people mad when I call it a fad. Sorry. There's some people that just can't or hang on to that. It's like they'd wear that mask forever if they could, as a sign of their nobility, how noble people they are. Anyway, so I guess I've been doing this ridiculous stuff for 7 years. I haven't been doing live streams. StreamYard got like impossible to use to me, and this long live streams are starting to just start wear on me. I've been more using my time lately. I've got this hobby of writing crazy song lyrics and having the suno.com create music. That to me is like the greatest Christmas present I ever got, except I got it in June. It's a summer present. It's unbelievable what you can do. If I want to write a song and make it sound like it was recorded by Peter, Paul, and Mary or by Carl Perkins, I can manipulate it. If I put 1963 classic country female singer, there's a good chance it's going to sound like Patsy Cline. And I can make Patsy Cline sing about how great Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine is, and how if you don't read it, she's going to walk away from you and from the relationship. So I've been creating these songs, and then I assemble them together, and then I do like I'm like a DJ on a radio station, and I've been doing that lately. And people aren't some people are liking it, some people aren't understanding it. Some people it's flying over their heads because they'll listen to it and they'll say, I don't know this music, or they'll say, I just don't, or they don't understand. It's, you got to know music. I don't know. You got to have a sense of, you've got to actually listen to it to hear the humor. But if you're just like, oh, he's just playing music, I want to see comic book, I want to have comic book commentary. Well, I would recommend the stuff to listen while you're driving your car or while you're whatever chores you have to do, and then you'll get the joke. But I'm having fun with it because I've always wanted to be a DJ, and this music isn't copywritten. It's created and sung by robots, and I tell it what to say. Oh my, Oh, my wife just sent me a text message. I was looking at it. Yeah. Um, so, it's fun for me. Um, I'm gonna keep doing. I mean, like I'll get like 6 people liking those shows, and then I'll get like 2 or 3 times more people liking a show where I talk about comics or whatever. I don't know. This show, I've rambled a lot, but what I basically am trying to sum up this whole show, I love comics dearly. I love the history of comics. I love traditional comics. I love old comics. Pretty much everything. Like, I love country music, but I don't like the country music of today for the most part. I like the country music of the 60s and 50s and 40s. I like rock and roll from the 60s and 50s and 70s too. Well, there's some from the 80s. I mean, I love music. I love movies. I love a lot of things, but I tend to like stuff from back then. I don't really like much of what's coming out today, although there is good stuff coming out today, like the Superman movie. And I want to let you know this Superman movie is not something you should be afraid of. It's fun. You'll have a good time. Man, the theater I went to yesterday is a theater built in the 30s. It's only $5 to get in. I thought, okay, so I sat down after paying my $5 and realizing, man, I'm not supporting this theater. The $5, your movie ticket money goes to the movie studio. The theater makes money from concession sales. So, okay, I'll go get some popcorn. So I had a little bit of cash. Everything's cash only. And I got a popcorn bucket this big around for $4. And then a substantial drink for $2. I spent $6 at the concession stand. I don't think you could do that. I don't think you could have done that in 1974 when you're going to see Earthquake. Maybe, probably less than that then. But I know back in Texas, before we moved 3 years ago, buying something like that would have probably been $25. Oh well. They asked if I wanted butter on it, and I said, yeah, but I shouldn't have probably said that, but it's all right. I used to work in a movie theater back in 1984, and the girls that worked behind the concession stand told me, we're told not to ever say, would you like butter? We're supposed to say, would you like topping? They say, don't ever, this is at Lowe's. They said, don't ever say butter, say topping, because it's not butter. Yeah. Those were the days, man. That was a long time ago. That was the summer when Ghostbusters was out, Purple Rain. What else was playing that summer? The third Star Trek movie, The Search for Spock, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Bachelor Party. I enjoyed that movie, Bachelor Party. I haven't seen that since it came out. What else was out then? Yeah, anyway. Boy, I'll tell you. How many times I remember that music from the closing credits of Ghostbusters so much, because having to walk into the theater and clean, pick up all, a trash bag, you have to pick up everybody's popcorn and everything. Now I try to be like yesterday I dropped a couple of kernels of popcorn. I was picking them up and putting, after the lights came on, because I stayed to see the closing credits. It's like I don't want someone else to have to do that. What was gross back in Texas is sometimes you'd pick up a cup and they'd been spitting their tobacco in it, Skoal or whatever, chewing tobacco. It was just all this black sludge in the cup. Well, on that note, So I'll be back. I'll do a show on the anniversary of the 7th anniversary of the show. Should I do a live stream? Let me know down below if you want me to do a live stream. I don't also, we were paying for this $25 a month StreamYard. Most people have free StreamYard. If you see a little goose up there or whatever, that means they have the free StreamYard. But if they have something else up there, if they can, then that means they have the pay StreamYard. And they started making the StreamYard, so I use it on my phone, and it just didn't work. And it just started getting tedious and annoying. But I could do a live stream, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, give me a thumbs up and a comment down below if you want. I appreciate the nice words. The Saturday morning comic book show, Comic Book Memories, there were someone in the chat named Scotty was talking about AI music, and he was talking about how he's a Christian guy, and he likes music from the 80s, but he says some of it, the lyrics are suggestive, so he'd like to change the lyrics and make them clean so he could listen to them. And he was saying that, which is not the way it works. You can't just take existing music and alter it. I mean, I'm sure that there are computers that could do that, but that's not, they generate music from, I guess what they've done is they've taught these AI computers about the entire history of music. And it's absorbed all this music, so it can generate fake voices, it can generate any instruments, it can generate what the music of a certain time period sounded like, a certain genre, whatever. But you can't just feed in an existing song and alter it and tweak it. That's not how it works. Maybe not, at least not on the suno.com that I'm on. Maybe we were just talking about that in the chat, and then they read what people say in the chat. Shannon and Dr. Silverage, and then Dr. Silverage said, I was watching Four Color Fossils, and Easy Comic Reader, he really likes my DJing, which I really appreciate. I think that guy's really cool. He's got really good taste in comics. He's like kind of guy from Texas. He kind of reminds me of Wolfman Jack. He's got good taste. Anyway, and I always like the comics that he collects. He's put all these nice comments on the radio DJ stuff that I do, and he started talking about my show on Graphic Man's Four Color Fossils show, and then so I guess that made Dr. Silverage go check my show out, and he was talking about how great it was, and Shannon was talking about I do this show where I have all this fake bubblegum music, and I all I do is you type in 1969 bubblegum music, male and female vocals. That's really about all you need to type in to let it know that it's going to sound like the Archies, because with that information, the AI computer can understand, because Sugar Sugar was the #1 song in 1969 when Woodstock, Sugar Sugar was the big hit. So if you can, so then you just type in your words, and all of a sudden it sounds like an Archie song, and you can make it, have Archie say, "Come on, Jughead, give us the Jughead," all the stuff that they would sing in the cartoon. But you can have them talking, cursing and talking about burning down Riverdale High, and it's great. You can make songs that sound, okay, I'm going to make this one sound like it was done about 1970, and see, should I have a girl or boy singer? Okay, and should I have echo? Maybe I should put some Hammond organ in there. Maybe I should put a theremin in. Maybe, you can say, well, how about a Farfisa organ? What kind of organ did they use on 96 Tears? Let's get that in there. Let's put some. This morning I did some country gospel music, and I said, okay, we're gonna have a chorus repeat what the main guy says behind him, okay, and then you can make it sound completely like it's from that time period. It's a blast. But you got to get the pay plan. You got to pay $10. So that's good that StreamYard went away, because that frees up money for me to feed to Suno, my new addiction. And StreamYard, that's getting old, because I'd rather, my wife's becoming a widow with me on StreamYard all the time, and that's not a good, healthy thing. So I'd rather spend time with her and my friends I can talk to on the phone, and anyway, I probably should have made this video about 17 minutes, and then the algorithm of YouTube would distribute it better to everyone. And if I could just get 150 more subscribers, then I can monetize and be wealthy. Captain Strangelove says, well, sometimes I'll get $30 a month. That's great. To me, $30 a month would be great. But anyway, hope Captain Strangelove's going to have some knee surgery, and his wife's has nerve damage in her leg. And man, I feel so sorry for him, man. And he wants to move. That's his dream, to move. But now with their health, my dream is that he could find a place to move, and we could gather all of the comic book people from several states around to come in and help him move. I don't know if you know about the Amish, but they can move someone's barn. They get everyone in the county that's Amish together, and they're like superheroes or worker ants. They lift this barn up and move it, because they don't use technology. They lift it. They do it the way our ancestors did it. And it's like, if everyone gets together to help him move, because it's going to be a Herculean task. I don't like to... I don't know if I've ever said that word out loud in my life before. Herculean, or is it Herculean? How would you pronounce it? Is it Krypton or Krypton? The planet Krypton. How would you pronounce it, Drew? How is the planet Krypton pronounced? Anyway. So basically, if you don't like this new Superman movie, you're probably a normal person. I guess there's nothing wrong with being normal. You're probably okay. You can. There it is, Rachel Brosnahan. I'm playing Lois Lane in New Superman. You're going to be able to function. You can talk about football with people. You're okay. I don't really want to have much to do with people that don't like the Superman movie. They're just not my kind of person. They're just like, if you told me you don't like Mad Magazine or Wacky Packages, or if you told me you don't like Frankenstein or Famous Monsters of Filmland, it's like, well, then why the hell am I your friend? Why would I be friends with someone that doesn't like Famous Monsters of Filmland? It doesn't make sense. And James Gunn does a good job with comic book movies, man. So Peacemaker, I guess, starts in August. What the hell day is this? Monday? Monday, yeah. It's the new issue of Castle of Frankenstein out. That's an important thing. And there's a new issue of Cryptology, which is a great magazine, coming out this week. Check your local comic store. Always call up Kevin Johnson at Gotham City Comics and see if he's got something. He usually orders at least a few copies of all the monster stuff. Don't be a square, man. You got to get your monster stuff. What is going on here, man? Yeah. Well, parting is such sweet sorrow. Oh, this showed up at the supermarket. Look at this. And I threw it in my basket. I didn't realize. My wife said, you spent, how much is this thing? Oh, I thought she said it was more than this. You spent $10 on an Archie comic. Well, these things used to be just a couple of bucks. Archie halfway to Halloween. Yeah, I didn't know. Like, I've got an older one here that I got as part of a deal. Yeah, $3.20. This was $3.29. I don't know when this happened. Anyway, this exists out there in the world right now. So look at this. It's all Halloween stories. Oh, that one looks like it's from Madhouse from the 60s. Oh, look at that monster pinup page. Look at that, man. I've got the comic book that came from, I think. So, yeah, this was just there next to the National Enquirer and everything in the checkout line. It's the only comic book that you can get in a regular store now. Or those little digests. I haven't seen one of those in years in a store. One of those Archie digests. Well, 7:15. I guess it's time for dinner. So I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places, and I'll be back in a couple of days. And let me see if I can get in on this feeding frenzy of Superman videos on YouTube. Take care.